Hey and welcome to the MX-5 guide on Jefferson Circuit in iRacing. This track is short but extremely technical, so my tip for you this week is to keep it simple. Just take it easy and focus on keeping the car on the racing line, because that's what will gain you the most time around here. The moment where you start pushing will be the moment where you start losing time, because this car is simply not made for this track and you will only push it into areas where there's nothing to gain. So you might as well keep it simple, have some fun and enjoy your races. Like in all weeks, I've uploaded all lap files to the community Discord, which allow you to race against this lap in your practice sessions. You can find the link in the description down below, and I'm also offering coachings. You can find more information about them in the description as well. Enter the first braking zone on the very far left edge of the track. Use the wall on the left side as marker for braking, hit the brakes hard and shift all the way down into first gear. This is usually the point where I stress you about being aggressive on the throttle, slam it down and aim for an aggressive exit. Not this time, because we're heading into a technical section, so you want to be a bit more patient, coast and wait for the car to turn around. The main reason for it is that we don't want to exit this turn on the outside. We want to exit it around the center of the track to get a nice entry into the following left-hander. And this is roughly the spot where you want to end up. You want to exit the turn on the right side of the road markings. Prepare for a smooth line around the next left-hander, because you want to take it flat out. Technically you can attack this curb, but I found more success by driving around it, because sometimes it can unsettle your car in a pretty bad way and it's not worth the hassle. Lift when you enter the next turn, because once again we don't want to exit on the outside of the track, we want to exit around the center right of the track to get a nice entry into the upcoming hairpin. Once again I would advise you to avoid the curb on the inside, because there's not that much space to catch the car or to counter steer if the rear should get unsettled. At the exit you want to step on the throttle and keep pushing the car to the right. There aren't any great brake markers for the next turn, but since you don't arrive with that much speed and don't need to brake that much anyway, it's not that difficult to develop a feeling for that turn after a few laps of practice. Don't be too aggressive in this braking zone, simply hit the brakes and shift down into first gear. Turn in and stay a bit away from the inside curb, because there's something like a second apex coming up. Get back on the throttle, but engage it with care, because you want a clean exit. Being too aggressive and going flat out right away will initiate a slide, which will cost you time on the straight. And here on the left is the second apex, which I've mentioned previously. You want to hit a tight run around it and use it as marker, because after that the turn will start to open up, which means that you want to go flat out as soon as possible again. Position the car on the far right edge of the track for the next braking zone and use the big tree on the left or its shadow as marker for braking. You want to tap the brakes and shift down into second gear. I know it's tempting to be aggressive around here, but this is one of the braking zones where you don't want to take any risks, because otherwise you won't make the exit and you will lose more time on the upcoming straight than you can gain on this braking zone. Be aggressive on the throttle to carry your speed onto the straight. And once again, I would not recommend you to touch the inside curb. You can attack it on the first half, but the second half of the curb is pretty steep, which means that when you hit it, you will get thrown to the outside of the track and it will be very difficult to keep the car under control. So just avoid those troubles and aim for a smooth entry onto the straight. A short warning, because the last set of turns will be mechanically challenging. You will need to manually blip twice while you are downshifting to keep the car stable. Should you have issues with it and don't want to spend too much time in practice sessions, then I would recommend you to turn on the auto blip assist for this week. It's not as reliable as manual blips, so you won't be able to push to the same limits, but it's quite decent at doing its job, which means that you won't lose the car too quickly. Stay in third gear, aim for a wide entry and brush the curb on the right side. Turn in towards the upcoming inside curb, use the pathway on the right as marker and hit the brakes. Since we will stay on the brakes throughout the entry, it's important that you are careful with the pressure you apply. You want to aim for roughly 50% brake pressure and then stick with minor adjustments while you follow the racing line. Applying too much pressure will immediately cause a spin, too little pressure won't allow you to slow down enough, and that's why you need to find a balance. When you reach the inside curb, it's also the time where you want to shift down into second gear. Manually blip, which means that you want to fully step on the throttle for a split second while you downshift to keep the car stable. Once you pass the curb, you want to open the wheel to stabilize the car and let it swing to the outside of the track. On your way to the outside of the track, you want to downshift into first gear and manually blip again to keep the car stable. And now you see why we even bother with doing all of this. By going through all of those hassles, we managed to set the car up for a really wide entry into the last turn, which allows us to be aggressive on the throttle and carry a lot of speed onto the main straight. Be aggressive on the throttle, push the car towards the line, and don't hesitate to use the pit entry on your exit, it's part of the racing surface. That was the guide, have fun with the cockpit lap. Please don't forget to leave a like. I wish you all the best for the next week and see you next time.